If I'm gonna build the perfect zoo in Zoo Tycoon Complete Collection, I need some real-world data. So let's go see how the professionals do it. Back in 2001, Microsoft and Bluefin Games released Zoo Tycoon, and it quickly became one of my favorite games of all time. It was basically part management sim and part animal encyclopedia. This game is a childhood classic filled with secrets and horror. Today I'm going to compare it to a real zoo, uncover wild Easter eggs and developer lore, build a battle dome, and yes, make my very own zoo for the first time in over 20 years. Zoo Tycoon came out when I was 11, which was the exact right age for getting completely obsessed with a game like this. And I didn't always know what I was doing from the management side of things, but I loved decorating the exhibits and the whole park. I'd spend hours making sure that my animals had the right terrain and foliage and rocks, just to find out that I'd added one rock too many and now they hate me forever. In the original Zoo Tycoon game, the animals are so picky. If you place just one too many rocks or one too many tufts of savanna grass, instant clinical depression. For example, I bet in Zoo Tycoon that this would not actually be a suitable environment for this African elephant. There's too many rocks. There's too much grass for elephant 1. So before I began, I had to figure out exactly what the goal was for this video. At first I thought it would be fun to emulate the zoo that I visited in real life and try to recreate their actual exhibits. So I started with the giraffes. Looking at my footage, there were some nice big rocks and boulders. The ground was pretty flat overall. There were some trees, some grass, and so I also gave my version of the exhibit some dirt, savanna grass, a nice shelter. It was kind of as close as I could get to recreating the zoo that I visited. But once I checked on them, they were very unhappy. So unhappy, in fact, that I received numerous complaints about the living conditions of the animals in my zoo, and because of that, I couldn't adopt any more animals. Okay then. And I decided to try one more time, so I went with the flamingo exhibit. Now, the flamingos in the real-life zoo seemed pretty content to just hang out in the grass next to their cute little pond with oak trees and autumn leaves scattered all over the ground. But the flamingos in Zoo Tycoon considered that to be actual animal abuse. While they did seem to enjoy their little pond, their happiness levels quickly diminished until once again I received a complaint. So clearly, the goal of this video couldn't, as I hoped, be a video about recreating real zoo exhibits. So then what could I do?
Flamingo 1 looks miserable. Everyone knows that flamingos hate coniferous rocks.
Then I thought, what if I just skipped the whole zoo part and went straight to building a giant battle dome? An exhibit packed to the brim with predators and prey all fighting for dominance. An epic tale of twists and turns and torture, I guess. The problem is, a battle dome doesn't actually last very long. Once the animals get too unhappy, the game won't even let you adopt new ones. And while it's undeniably hilarious to watch a T-Rex stomp a zebra, there's only so much to say about animals duking it out. After a couple battles, the novelty wears off and it's pretty clear who the winner is going to be. Plus, there are some animals that just won't fight. For example, I couldn't get the tiger to battle the lion. I'm not sure why, but they just wouldn't. But then everything changed when I tried the penguins. My favorite animals are penguins, and thanks to a glorious coding error in the original Zoo Tycoon game, Emperor penguins can defeat almost any animal in the game. So I ran a few tests to see exactly who these little guys could and couldn't take down. So it appears that the penguins can take down most prey animals, but unfortunately they can't defeat a lion, for example. They can, however, defeat a panda bear, and to make it even weirder, any prey animal that you put in the pen will make the penguins unhappy, and then they attack. But if you put a predator in the pen, like a lion, they become happy, even though the lion eats them. So yeah, not sure what that means. Another idea that I had for making a video about Zoo Tycoon was to try one of the ultimate challenges, the scenarios that I could never beat as a kid because I didn't have the skills. But that just sounded not fun. So ultimately, I decided to just zen out, forget about the rules and the regulations and the challenges, and just make a zoo simply for the purpose of chasing nostalgia. So I gave myself the maximum starting budget because I'm going to roleplay a trust fund kid today. A trust fund kid who is going to start a zoo. What could go wrong? How should I start? Now, if you put in at least one animal in your zoo, guests will pay the full $22 of admission, which sounds a little bit like a scam, but I'm not gonna tell them. First things first, I hired some staff. I always forget this part, so I figured I would do it first. And then I discovered an interesting fact about their wages. Zookeepers make $800 a month, and maintenance staff, $300. That's like how much I spent just to go to the zoo yesterday. And now for the first exhibit. I chose the majestic lion, and of course, just like every animal in this game, it feels impossible to make them happy. Now there's too much savanna grass. So now we need more dirt. Okay. There's too much dirt. I had to read through the animal facts to figure out what these stupid lions wanted, and I don't know why they're so picky considering they apparently sleep over 20 hours a day. But ultimately, I was able to make their perfect exhibit. Wow! That voice in the audience always cracked me up. Wow! Wow! Time for Easter egg number 1. If you put a lion, a tiger, and a bear all into one exhibit, you'll unlock the Yellow Brick Road tile path, which of course I had to do just because I can. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my! One of my favorite things about this game is how it came to be, because originally it was actually pitched as Airport Tycoon, but producer Hank Howie said no, and thank goodness for that, because no kid in 2001 was interested in simulating a baggage claim and transportation routes. Now that I said that, I realize that people who are fans of Transport Tycoon probably would like a word with me. And look at this aviary animation. This is such a cute detail. At this point, I also added some more bathrooms and shops, and a circus, which seemed inappropriate for a zoo somehow. Next up was a snowy zone with some penguins and other Arctic-related animals. But no matter what I did, I couldn't get the wolves to be happy. They refused to be happy. In fact, while they were developing Zoo Tycoon, when they were playtesting, people kept getting frustrated because the game didn't tell them if the animals were happy or not. And so one developer who was angry, he finally snapped and yelled, "What do you want me to do? Put a smiley face when they're happy and a frowny face when they're sad?" And that's exactly what they did. But in the end, the wolves were irritating me, so I sold them in exchange for some reindeer. At this point, I had already blown through over half of my starting $500,000 budget, so I realized it was time to take a break from making exhibits and turn my attention to making my zoo some money. So I added some more shops and places where my guests could spend their cash. I hate to say this, but as much as I would like Zoo Tycoon to be mostly about ecology and learning about animals and preservation, it's really just about capitalism. How profitable can you make your zoo? Because if your zoo isn't profitable, you fail, and your animals will die. A sobering thought indeed, and one that I should have considered more deeply as my budget dwindled further and further. My expenditures had been extravagant. I craved grandeur. Lush decorations, elaborately themed realms designed to convince guests that they were traversing true jungles, not just looking at them. Yet excess alone was not enough. I hungered for a spectacle, for something no real zoo could ever provide, which brings me to our next Easter egg. I could just be making this up, but I think in Zoo Tycoon there was an Easter egg where if you placed a certain object, it might have been a mermaid statue in a aquarium tank, it would actually turn into an actual mermaid. I have to test that out when I get home. And test it out I did. With a fifth of my budget still intact, this revelation should have been enough to cement my zoo's greatness, but I craved more! Also, I love how the mermaids sing. Next, I decided to blow almost all of my remaining budget on a creature so ravenous, so dangerous, that only a 20-foot electrified fence could contain it. After the mermaids and the T-Rex, you'd think I would be satisfied, but now nearing the end with only a tiny space left, it was time to construct the final exhibit. For my grand finale, I remembered one of the greatest secrets of Zoo Tycoon. If you name an exhibit Xanadu, you unlock a unicorn. The problem was I didn't have much space left in my zoo, which meant saying goodbye to my camel, who was promptly sold off so his pen could be transformed into Unicorn Utopia. And unicorns are shockingly picky. They hate sand, they adore deciduous terrain, and their absolute favorite trees are willows and Japanese maples. Of course, midway of creating my Unicorn Utopia, I ran out of money, which brings us to the money cheat. If you pressed Shift plus 4, it would give you an instant $10,000, but it would also break a fence or muddy a tank. Because of this, I only used the cheat a couple times just to finish my unicorn exhibit. And with that, I had finally achieved my so-called perfect zoo. The reindeer roamed the snowy plains, the unicorns hid in their enchanted forest, my T-Rex dined on only the finest organic meats, guests wandered wide-eyed, and yes, they even had access to the finest overpriced gift shops money could buy. It was utopia. For a moment. I had made one fatal mistake. I forgot to make the zoo actually profitable. My spending had spiraled out of control. I started to get a little greedy, and so I used the shift plus 4 cheat method once again to embezzle more money into my zoo, surpassing over $2.5 million.
We're coming to you live from Harke Zoo, where scenes of panic are unfolding after multiple animals have escaped their enclosures. Guests are running for their lives in what can only be described as pandemonium. Sources confirm the crisis began when budget cuts left the zoo without proper staff to maintain fences and clean exhibits. In a surprising turn, children appear to be completely unharmed, thanks to what experts are calling their invincible coating. Unfortunately, their caretakers have not been so lucky. Stay tuned for continuing coverage of this tragic, yet somehow whimsical, disaster.
And maybe, just maybe, if I had cared a little bit more about capitalism and focused on building an actually profitable zoo, it wouldn't have ended in mayhem and destruction. But since I didn't want that kind of disaster to happen at the real zoo I visited, I did the responsible thing and bought myself a little souvenir for my desk jungle. Capitalism at its finest. Thanks for watching.